Contraception has become more important than ever following the Supreme Court's decision and ensuing crisis for women's health. And today's action helps ensure that women can make decisions about their own health, lives, and also their families. Now, as you all know, when a section of I-95 collapsed just 12 days ago, President Biden made clear that his administration would move heaven and earth to get I-95 reopened as soon as possible. 6 days ago, as you all covered and may have been there yourselves, he visited Philadelphia, where he viewed the site of the collapse and met with union leaders and local officials working day and night to rebuild the bridge. Now today, the president called into Governor Shapiro's Governor Shapiro just ahead of the press conference that the governor held, announcing to people in Philadelphia that the I-95 is now reopened. This phase of the emergency repair is 100% federally funded, and all approvals were given as quick as possible. We also deployed officials from U.S. Department of Transportation to the crash site within hours to help fast-track the effort. We are proving that when we work together, there is nothing that we cannot do. This is an important step forward, and the president and his entire administration are making clear to the people of Pennsylvania that we will be here to provide whatever it takes to keep the permanent repairs on track. Now, we'll have more to share on this, but later today and on the full week ahead. But on Wednesday, the president will travel to Chicago to deliver a major address on Bidenomics.
Welcome, everybody.
His vision for growing the economy from the middle out and bottom up, not from the top down. The president will highlight how, for too long, failed trickle-down economic policies have continued to be pushed by congressional Republicans, have hollowed out the middle class and sent jobs overseas. President Biden's economic plan is a break. It is a break from those failed policies. It is focused on growing the middle class and empowering workers, investing in America, and lowering costs. That plan is delivering results with more than 13 million jobs created, the strongest economic growth among any of the world's leading economies since the pandemic began, and the lowest current inflation among the world's leading economies. So we'll have more to share on his speech in the days ahead, and we'll have a week ahead later today for all of you as well. And finally, I do want to speak to something that we all watch very closely the last couple of days. Before I get started, wanted to say a few words about the submersible. Our hearts go out to the families and the loved ones of those who lost their lives on the Titan. They have been through a tragic ordeal over the past few days, and we are keeping them in our thoughts and prayers. We would also like to thank the United States Coast Guards, our Canadian, British, and French partners, and everyone who participated in the search and rescue efforts these past couple of days. This whole effort has been a testament to the skill and also the professionalism that the men and women who serve our nation continue to demonstrate, continue to show each and every day. With that, as you all know, the Admiral is here to join me at the podium to speak to any questions that you may have after the Prime Minister's visit yesterday and any other foreign policy matters that you all have.
Yeah, that's what they want to ask.
Admiral, the podium is yours.
Afternoon, everybody.
This guy.
I think, as you know, Prime Minister Modi just concluded a very successful official
Nobody's
state
talking
visit
about
here to
this.
the White House this morning. The president and the
She's
Prime
like,
Minister
yoink!
dropped by a meeting between senior officials and CEOs of American and Indian companies gathered to discuss innovation, investment, and manufacturing in a variety of technology sectors, including artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and space. And I think you received a list of all the attendees earlier today. Now, over the course of this visit, President and Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed that the partnership between the United States and India is deeper and more expansive than it's ever been. And when we think about the future, not only of this relationship, but of the critical emerging technology, countering climate change, global health, energy security, food security, there's just simply no partner that's going to be more consequential to helping solve those problems than India, and that's exactly what President Biden made clear during this visit. And as you all saw yesterday, and hopefully you saw,
I was working on a video, but then
this
started,
on
so
all of those fronts, very specific, very tangible deliverables that we're looking forward to carrying future with India. And then, as both leaders reaffirmed, our countries are choosing to work together to truly work.
Does anybody care about this? Seriously, like, what is this? Like, immediately we should be talking about the huge allegations that have now been levied by the IRS and by IRS whistleblowers.
So you mentioned, we saw yesterday the President and the Prime Minister held a 1-on-1 in the East Room instead of the usual 2-and-2. Can you speak a little bit to the conversations, the negotiations that went on in advance of that? It's obviously unusual for the Canadian Prime Minister to have a press
The administration's
conference,
press.
but not to be at the U.S. standard of 2. Why did the White House not push for it to be 2 questions to each leader?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the sausage making on this. I mean,
the sausage making, yeah, you know.
The Indians, as we were preparing for this visit.
We're not going to talk baseball today,
we felt
guys.
It was important for President Biden, certainly for both leaders, to be able to talk to you guys, read out their discussions, and take some questions. And we're glad that Prime Minister Modi and his team felt the same way.
And then secondly, Jake's travels this weekend, particularly his meetings with the BRICS minus Russia and China officials from Brazil, India, and South Africa. Do you have any preview of what to expect from those conversations?
Now, I don't have travel to really read out or talk to today. I would just tell you that Jake especially, but all of us here on the national security team work closely with the Ukrainians almost every day, whether it's talking to them about security assistance or whether it's talking to them about this idea of a just peace and the principles behind that and how you get that. And those conversations are ongoing, and we'll continue to conduct them, not only with the Ukrainians, but with allies and partners alike.
Hey, John, China's complaining that the president's description of Xi as a dictator is a provocation. Could you walk us through the president's thinking on this comment?
Well, the president, I think, walked you through that himself yesterday, Steve.
I hate our media.
We're not
our press sucks.
bashful about speaking plainly about some of the concerns and issues that we have with the PRC and with the challenges that they propose. And the president is very forthright in the way he addresses those challenges and the complicated nature of this relationship. But it is an important relationship, and you heard the president talk about that yesterday as well. It's one of the most consequential bilateral relationships in the world today, and likely will be going forward. And that's why it was important to see Secretary Blinken make that trip to Beijing. That's why we're in discussions with the PRC about potential follow-on visits by cabinet officials. We'll see where that goes. But more critically, that's why we want to make sure we can keep the lines of communication open. And as the president said, he has every expectation that we'll be able to do that.
And you see India as a counterweight to China?
This state visit wasn't about China. And look, India has challenges with China as well. Right on their doorstep, but also more broadly in the region. And clearly, the challenges presented by the PRC to both our nations were on the agenda yesterday, no question about that. But this wasn't about leveraging India to be some sort of counterweight. India is a sovereign, independent state. They have their own foreign policy that they have to manage, and they live in a tough neighborhood. They are becoming an increasing exporter of security, which we welcome, and you could see a lot of that, our desire to improve the defense cooperation on hand yesterday in some of the deliverables, whether it's co-production of jet engines, whether it's their purchase of MQ-9 drones. There's a lot we can do in the security front together, and that's really what we're focused on.
Thank you. So, John, just to follow up, you're saying that the U.S. does not view India as having any role in its overall competition against China.
Hold on, guys.
I didn't say that. I said that we're not.
All right. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. Some people are asking what the Biden bombshell is. If you didn't hear already, basically there's several high-ranking IRS officers who are now whistleblowers coming out saying that Hunter was given preferential treatment. The DOJ literally tipped him off or tipped his lawyers off about searches that were coming to his house for documents. They wanted to charge Hunter with way more serious crimes, but they were blocked by the DOJ. And there's proof of this. There's proof that Hunter was talking to the CCP about a bribe that he and his father were expecting from the CCP. They have the text message. Hopefully they get to that during this. I feel like they're just going to try and avoid it during this press conference, but we'll see.
Differently. So why is the president saying so confidently that his remark had no real consequence?
Because he believes it. And we're still in communication with the PRC about
Xi is
moving this relationship
he is a
forward.
dictator.
That's what we're
like. Why is
focused on.
why is the media
And
coming to
every
bat for
indication that we're
Xi?
getting is
I mean, that
that's what
tells
the
you
PRC wants to focus
who's
on as
buttering
well.
their bread.
Thank you. Hi, John. The UN is saying that the violence in the West Bank might get out of hand, and the Israeli settlers' violence against Palestinians, including American Palestinians, as you know, in many villages in the West Bank, their houses have been burned down to the ground. Your own ambassador said that we cannot stand by and watch. So what does it mean?
I mean, does anybody? It's a pretty big bombshell, and yet this is what we're talking about.
Well, look,
like,
we've certainly
nobody
seen,
cares about this.
Reports now of U.S. citizens at risk and potential victims here.
I mean, it's not nobody cares, but this is small.
Of some of
This isn't the news that should be leading, but obviously they're trying to bury it.
about that. Several U.S. government officials visited the West Bank and met with the victims of this violence in a place called Termasaya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And consular officials have been providing assistance to U.S. citizens as requested. So we'll continue to stand ready to do that. Look, I'll say it again. For the, I don't know how many times.
We'll just
we
repeat
condemn
repeat
all acts
BS
of
as many
violence.
times as we
we'll
have
certainly
to.
extend our condolences to the families of those that were affected. We issue a speedy recovery for those that were injured, but the violence isn't helping reduce the tensions at all. And when you have a situation like this, leadership is really required. Leadership on both sides to stop the violence and to be demonstrable in doing so. So that the tensions can be turned down. And that's what we want to see.
Thank you. The Israeli National Security Minister spoke today at a settler outpost, and he urged Israeli settlers to expand their activities to be included in all of the West Bank mountains. Despite of the violence that you just talked about, and
It must have been blocked by
calls to
YouTube.
hold settlements, settlement buildings, we're still hearing this from high officials from the Israeli cabinet. Why do we still hear this? And
Just heads up, when this press conference is over, I do plan on going through, as long as my kids stay napping, I will go through some of the hearing points that some of you may have missed. What this bombshell is, we'll go over all that.
It will not change. And we have been very consistent in communicating that directly to government officials in Israel. I can't speak to their comments or why they're saying what they're saying. That's a better question for them. I can just tell you that our policy on settlements has not changed, and there's not going to be a change to it.
Thank you so much, Karine. Hi, John. So 2 questions about the trip to Copenhagen tomorrow. Some countries that will be there, like Brazil, for example, are saying that both sides will have to concede in order to have a peace plan to work. So what does the National Security Advisor
I don't care about any of this. I want to hear about. I want to hear what they have.
accomplish when
I mean, we
he's
know
meeting
that they're going to avoid
representatives
questions,
of
right?
Brazil, India,
So,
South Africa, and
I mean,
Turkey?
that's what we
And
expect,
Does
I
the White
guess.
House believe some progress can be made during this weekend?
Yeah, my answer is going to be pretty much the same. I don't have any trips or travel to speak to here.
I'm
from
just
Mr.
here to
Sullivan.
waste
I'll
time.
just tell you that we routinely have engagements of all different varieties with the Ukrainians and with our allies and partners about trying to seek a just peace and to discuss the peace
All right, let's
principles
move on.
around that.
Come on.
We'll continue to do that.
And just one more question, very quickly. If
I have
might.
more time to waste.
So, the United States and Russia have requested from Brazil the extradition of a Russian spy who is in jail there. Is the United States seeing him as a potential candidate for a prisoner swap deal to free the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich? Is this being considered?
No, I'm afraid I don't have any context for you on that at all, but just broadly speaking, what happened that you saw yesterday, Evan's appeal was denied, not surprised.
Through Southern Wrath, what up, Drone fam? What up, boss? Hey, man, what's up? Thanks for coming.
Paul Whelan, home to their families where they belong.
On Taiwan and India, what does the U.S. expect India's involvement would be at this point if China were to invade Taiwan?
That's up to the Indian government, Prime Minister Modi.
If you're just
to
joining us,
determine.
I'm gonna, as soon as this press conference goes through, I'm gonna chat some more
As I
after
said
that.
earlier, clearly our mutual challenges with the PRC in the Indo-Pacific was a matter of discussion.
There's so much to talk about.
Indians have been very vocal about their concerns too, with respect to what the PRC is doing. But I don't have anything more specific to read out to you in terms of the conversations specifically regarding Taiwan. All I can tell you on Taiwan is our policy has not changed.
And then on On the adventure tourism vessel that was headed to the Titanic, if the Navy had audio suggesting that it had imploded, was that communicated with all the partners, that you had that audio, or so that they...
The Navy did pass on to the incident commander the acoustic data that they had received. But they were also quick to make clear that they couldn't be definitive about what that data meant. And they couldn't be clear that that data
the kids
was connected to the Titan, to the submersible. But they did pass that information up to the incident commander.
Of course it was.
As you would expect they would. And I'm sure that was factored into the search plan.
Oh yeah, we
in some way,
detected
but
an
I'm afraid that
implosion.
it was
Oh, what else? What else could it be?
Resources were wasted in searching the area the size of Connecticut?
No. I think the Coast Guard has spoken definitively about this and quite well every day here, or at least every day till we got the tragic news that there was
Does
an
anybody
awful lot
buy
of
that?
effort put into
I'm not.
trying to locate the Titan. Look, when you're in a search and rescue operation, particularly at sea, particularly in deep sea, I mean, time is not your friend. And I think you can see from the way in which this was put together in pretty quick fashion with a lot of resources from
Right, but
Korean
they
nations from
detected the
multiple countries,
implosion. They knew that's what it was,
there
guys.
a
They
tremendous
had to.
effort put forward to try to
They knew the
to
location
find the
and everything,
Titan
where
as
it
quickly as
happened.
possible,
They
knowing
knew that was it. Come
time
on.
was not going to be anybody's
We
friend.
just didn't know for sure.
John, when the president said yesterday he expects to meet with President Xi in the future near term,
Real quick,
can you
let me just
define
make a
what
point on
means? Should
that. So they could have let everybody know that, oh, we detected an implosion and still go along with the search because, you just want to cover your base, so you do the search. I can understand that. Okay. But the fact they didn't say anything about it until yesterday, they say nothing about detecting it till today. Really? I'm not buying it.
He had the opportunity to discuss concerns over human rights with Prime Minister Modi, and he did, as he always does. We don't shy away from discussing human rights with foreign leaders, and one of the reasons you have partnerships and friendships is so that you can be honest and direct. I think he addressed that pretty well in his answer to you guys.
Thanks. John, the president said in his comments yesterday that he doesn't believe his China comments have had any consequence. Isn't China issuing a démarche to the
so
U.S.
weird that
ambassador
they're,
in
on this
Beijing
so
a
much.
consequence?
If démarches issued by nations against other nations were some sort of bellwether for whether a relationship was collapsing or in any danger, I mean, my goodness, Jeremy. A démarche is a démarche that happened all the time.
They should have at least let people know that it was detected.
Specifics. I'm
But
not
they
going to get
didn't.
into the
That's
specifics of
odd.
this one. The president's
They think
firm
we're all
that
stupid.
This relationship matters.
I get
It's
there's a lot of
important.
dumb people out there.
We need to
but-
move it forward, and he's absolutely confident that we'll be able to.
Let me ask you this. Other than the démarche, have you seen any other consequences?
No.
That's true.
No.
Nothing. And then secondly, the president in his comments at that fundraiser, he also revealed a U.S. intelligence assessment that she was not aware of the spy balloon flying over the U.S. in February. What was the strategic value of disclosing that intelligence at a fundraiser?
That wasn't a disclosure. That's been in the public domain.
Not on the record from any.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah. It was.
Oh,
a senior
I say
defense
it was.
official had talked about it before on the record that was a
Obviously, he's
possibility.
checked this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gwen. Hi, John. Honestly, I'm a little confused why you're not confirming Jake Sullivan's trip to Copenhagen, but especially because it's been reported by other countries' media who was attending. But let me try
It's
this
been
way.
reported.
Can you
That's what she should say.
specify the kind of request that was made by the president to Prime Minister Modi in terms of supporting or getting the support of global?
Yeah, I think the people on that sub are currently on their secret mission to Mars.
Did the president and the prime minister discuss whether President Putin will be welcome at the G20 in New Delhi?
I don't have anything additional to speak to with respect to the G20 and how that's shaping up. That's really for our Indian counterparts to speak to. And I'm not going to get into any greater detail on the discussions than what the two leaders talked to you guys about from the podium.
2
And
IRS
as for Jake's
whistleblowers. Any
travel,
questions?
if and when we have some travel to talk to, then by goodness we'll talk about it.
Okay, and One more question on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. There's a little bit of confusion. I think President Zelensky is saying, or was said yesterday, that Russia is plotting a terror attack on the nuclear power plant. President Putin today is urging the International Atomic Energy Agency to ensure that Ukraine does not attack the power plant. What is the administration's understanding on this? What's your assessment? And are there anything that you're doing in particular to that issue?
We're continuing to monitor it closely. We
Don't
are
you
able
just
to
have so
monitor
much confidence
some radiation
in
sensors
this
that are
guy?
around the plant, and thus far we've detected
Kirby,
no
man.
elevated
He's a
levels
slippery
of
one.
radioactivity.
Do you have any sense of who's going to attack, if anyone is?
Look, I've seen those
The
reports,
people
I've
on the
seen those
sub were
comments.
IRS
I just
whistleblowers.
don't have anything to confirm them or speak to the validity of them.
That's the first joke about that I've
The only
laughed
other
at.
thing I'd say, and we've said this before too,
I
is
kind of
that,
feel bad about it. Yeah.
I think we should all be able to agree that a nuclear power plant is not a great site for military operations one way or the other.
John, just on the issue of Russian oil, does the president come out of this meeting with Modi with the belief that India may actually reduce its purchases of Russian oil, and to what extent did that come up in your conversation?
India has to make its own choices about oil purchases, and we hope that we can continue to see that they purchase Russian oil at or below the price cap as they have been.
And then just on NATO, the president's going to be leaving in a couple of weeks. Where do things stand in terms of, his effort to help Sweden become a member of NATO? Should we expect a call with Erdogan in the coming weeks?
There's conversations ongoing between the Swedish government and President Erdogan. We have been encouraging those conversations to continue.
Just so it's clear, I'm joking about my sub conspiracies.
That the two nations will be able to come to an accord and will be able to welcome Sweden as the 32nd ally in NATO. I couldn't begin right now to give you like a time frame of what that's going to look like, when and under what circumstances. But the fact that they're still talking is a good thing. And again, the president remains optimistic.
Thanks, Karim. John, in light of what's happening in the West Bank, many scholars believe that...
Since it's a West Bank question, Nick says the Navy wouldn't make an announcement about a suspected implosion because it would stop rescue efforts. I don't think that's the case. I mean, they would still search, even with knowing that there was an implosion. Okay, and in fact, knowing where they detected that implosion would maybe have even helped with the search to at least like locate specifically where it happened. It's just odd to me they wouldn't even mention it. Why would they not mention it? I'm not buying the Nick Bierman, your explanation. I don't think the search efforts would stop.
Or that we're not engaging. We absolutely are.
Can you please confirm that the State Department informed the government agency that scientific and technical cooperation with Israel beyond the Green Line is not consistent with the law?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The State Department informed all the government
Hey,
agencies
join us in Discord if you'd like.
that scientific and technical cooperation with
y'all a
Israel
little
beyond the
invite.
Green Line is not consistent with the law. Can you confirm that?
No, I can't. I don't have anything for you on that.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, John. I have two questions, one China, one North Korea.
Yeah, guys, those microphones that the Navy heard that implosion with are very sensitive. They've been using these things for like over 50 years or something now. They're very good with them, and they can locate where the source of sounds that they record come from.
Yeah, issues. How will you respond to this? And second question on North Korea. North Korea continues to develop the nuclear.
Look at the Newsmax guy there, super bored. He's just waiting for his chance with KJP.
Cryptocurrency and cyber
That's
hacking.
Newsmax, or is he OAN?
What action is the United States
Or
taking
is he?
currently,
He's New York
and
Post,
what
right?
was
He's New York Post.
specifically
Never mind.
discussed
That guy's okay.
at the U.S. South Korea cyber security talks this week?
Well, I make it a habit not to talk about cybersecurity talks very much, for good reason. But on your first question, look, we know that Beijing has influence in Pyongyang, and we continue to urge them to use that influence. We continue to urge them to actually implement the UN sanctions that have long been in place
kind of looks like my
on
dad.
North Korea's program,
dad's
and we
a better
continue to
looking guy,
urge
My dad
China
kinda
to
looks
take a
like
broader,
Harrison
longer
Ford.
view here of the challenges that are presented by North Korea's burgeoning program, both their ballistic missile program and their nuclear ambitions.
Do you think the president will going to apologize his mention?
The president was very clear yesterday that he'll continue to speak forthrightly and bluntly about the challenges that we face with the PRC. He will also continue to speak bluntly and forthrightly about the opportunities that are still resident in that relationship and
Glove.
trying to move that relationship forward.
The State Department says that it organized a meeting earlier this month in Cairo with other nuclear powers.
Yeah, that's one thing you can say about the sub people is that they probably didn't know what hit them. They might have had an instant where they knew something was about to happen, but it would have been lights out instantly.
Continuing dialogue. We just happen to be the chair of these nuclear nations, nuclear armed nations, and it's done at a working level. This one was in Cairo earlier this month. We chaired it. It was a good opportunity. The State Department put a statement out. I'd certainly encourage you to talk to them, but it was a good opportunity for dialogue about nuclear safety protocols and procedures. It's done at a working level.
But it's not like a precursor to any like broader talks as it relates to like
It is a
new treaties or anything like that.
No, it's a routine process. We happen to be the chair, and we convene the meeting as the chair of this working group, and it is at a working group level.
Yeah, thanks. And so back to India. Is it this push for American
so much
companies
talk
to
about
do more
India.
business?
We got real news to
This
talk
push for
about.
American companies to do more business in India, is that a way to move away from China?
A way to move for who to move away from China?
From the U.S. Is pushing U.S. companies to do business in India a way to move those companies away from China?
It's a way to encourage mutual investment with India.
Last two, Karen. Thanks. President Zelensky said this week that the pace of the counteroffensive is moving slower than desired. Is the administration concerned right now about the pace and what you guys are seeing and hearing and talking with Ukrainian officials?
We're focused
I
on
follow
making
this
sure
war
that
very
the
closely.
Ukrainian armed forces have everything that they need to be successful. War is unpredictable, and the enemy gets a vote. And I'm certainly not going to get up here and speak to Ukrainian offensive operations. They should be the ones to do that. But I don't think that they went into this with some sort of false sense of confidence about how tough it was going to be. It's not as if the Russians, and we talked about this many times from here, that the Russians were preparing for this.
She sounds just like KJP. We've talked about this many times.
Putting
She
in
says that
additional
phrase a
forces,
lot, too.
building defense lines, sometimes 3 lines deep. It's not as if the Russians weren't preparing for defense, and defense is a strong form of war. And the Ukrainians are fighting through this. I think we just all have to recognize that combat can be unpredictable, and sometimes your plans don't always go exactly the way that you expected them to, but that's what's expected when you're in combat. What we're going to focus on again is making sure that they can be ultimately successful.
All right, James, and then behind you, has the last word. But James, go first.
Karine, thank you as always.
All right, I think
Admiral,
Karine's
thank
coming
you.
back after this.
The House Ways and Means Committee yesterday released documents, their authenticity nowhere challenged. That included a July 2017 WhatsApp message sent
Why he's
by
asking
Hunter
KJP.
Biden to Henry Zhao, a Chinese Communist Party official, which stated in its entirety, and I quote, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of
He's gonna
hand,
be like, "Oh,
and
that's
now
not
means
confirmed.
tonight." And Z,
We
if I
haven't
get a call or
authentic-
text from anyone involved in this
authenticated
other
it.
than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father," unquote. So just a couple of questions about this. First, does this not undermine the president's claim during the 2020 campaign and the reaffirmations of that claim by his 2 press secretaries since then, that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with him?
No, and I'm not going to comment further on this.
No.
I'm not.
What do you mean no?
James, let me save you some.
F you, dude.
Let me save you some breath. if you're going to ask about this, I am not addressing. I know.
There
you
we
do
go.
more
We all
than
knew
I'd
this
like
is
you
what
to
they would
have.
do.
I am not going to address this issue from this podium.
Yeah,
I'm just not
I'm
going to
not.
do it. I'm not going to do it.
My boss is getting bribes from the CCP. I'm
Thanks,
not going to
guys.
talk
Have a
about
great
that.
weekend.
Bah. He's like, yoink!
Okay.
Did you see that?
Zeke, you want to kick us off?
Yoink!
Thanks, Rin.
You're in for it, KJP. Hopefully.
Johnson, the president's press conference.
If we have a real free press, she will be.
Does the president continue? Will you say that Xi Jinping is a dictator? Is that the official position of the U.S. government?
Look, the president spoke for himself. I'm just not going to go beyond what he said. John just spoke
I'm not
to
here
it,
to answer
and
questions.
It's weird hearing your voice.
What's happening? What is going on? I can't hear anything. The sound got cut off.
Is it good? We're good to go? No.
What is happening?
I object.
We're all friends. We're laughing together. We're not talking about the huge bombshell at all. It's just silence. What's happening?
Hello?
Do you need me to call Walker, or is it I think you should call Walker.
All right, I'll try my best here. This sounds so weird, guys. So, look, the president's going to continue to speak candidly. That will never change.
They're going to cancel this
About
press
China,
conference
as
because
he's
of this or
done the
something.
last
Watch.
2 years,
This is weird.
He'll talk about the differences, clearly, that they have.
Clearly?
And disagreements. That is something that the president, if you think about the president
Oh, there we
believing
go.
in diplomacy, believing in having.
Fixed it. Oh.
That's what the president's going to do. As you know, you guys have covered him for some time. He's very candid. He speaks honestly. But he also...
He speaks honestly. He's one of the most prolific liars in Washington. What is going on? This is not me, guys. This is on their end. No sound. It's on them. They've literally cut the sound right now. We can at least read the caption.
MAGA, despite the Office of Special Counsel's opinion of the matter, your office has continued to put out a paper using that phrase. You have in the past have brushed off all questions about any political concern, saying this administration follows the law. So why, in this case, are you going with your own interpretation of the law rather than the independent office?
Oh, I wouldn't say it's our own interpretation of the law. I would strongly disagree with that statement. What I'll say more broadly, and there's a couple of points that I want to make here. So, look, the White House counsel's office is reviewing,
points?
as I mentioned last week,
That'd be new.
OSC's opinion and having a routine dialogue with them. That's what we're doing. That's what we said last week, and that's what's going to continue. It is an ongoing process, and we believe from here, from the podium, from this administration, it's our duty to be transparent with the American people. That's what you see from us, and it's not. On the agenda, right, on the president's policies, on the president's values, and about the agenda, that's what we want to be transparent about. And look, just a couple of facts here.
So
OSC has
Orwellian, all
said
of
that
this.
they view terms like Tea Party as acceptable. And this is a similar phrase, right? When you think about when you think about MAGA. In fact, OSC itself stated that MAGA could be used for official purposes during the Trump administration and permitted Mick Mulvaney to repeatedly use the term in his official capacity. So congressional Republicans has also used the term, as I mentioned here last week.
Oh,
when I
she's
was
trying to
asked
make an
about
argument
this.
for why it's different from
The
why
same
she
phrase,
campaigned
the same
from her
phrase to
position.
discuss their own
I get it.
agendas, their own proposals,
I was lost
their
there for a
own
minute.
policies. And so we have used the term MAGA in an official capacity, as we are, when you think
I
about
love
the
how she just
contacts, when we
reads
talk
off a
about their
paper. That's all she
proposals,
does.
that's how we've used it. And related,
She's just
and
up
their
there to
related
read, and she
values,
doesn't even do
as
that very well.
Republican officials say. And so we never directed it towards a campaign. We've never done that because, again, we respect the rule of law and have not done that. And so that will continue to be the case. And again, this is being reviewed. There's a conversation that's going to happen with our White House counsel and OSC, but I'll let that process continue. Okay.
Thanks, Green. Former Vice President Mike Pence is calling on every GOP presidential candidate to endorse a 15-week abortion ban. In what ways does this administration expect that abortion access and reproductive rights would be targeted if Republicans
these are
take
just
control
like
of
left-wing activists.
So I just want to be really
reporters.
mindful, as I was just asked about the Hatch Act. I'm not going to comment on any specific Republican candidate here or anything that's related to 2024. What I can speak to easily is more broadly, and we've seen it. You've heard me at the top talk about how this president and the vice president is going to continue to fight for fundamental rights as we see it when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to having access and women being able to make a decision on their own body, to have that conversation with
Well, it's the other
doctors.
body we're talking
That's
about,
something
not
that
their
the president's
body.
going to and the vice president's going to
Separate
continue
body.
to fight on as it relates to just more broadly.
They always
here,
do that, you know. It's they're always so dishonest.
To your question about the 15
everything
week or
around that
12
debate.
weeks, whatever it is, look, we have seen from Americans, majority of Americans, who do not want politicians making their healthcare decisions for them. That's been clear. We've seen that in majority of Republicans,
So we have to define healthcare. Is
of
murder
Americans,
healthcare? Is mutilating children
of every
healthcare?
ideology, right? If you think about that. And so what we are going to
confirm
continue to do, when we
delusions
are
that aren't real?
committed to those Americans, a majority of Americans, all Americans across the country, is that we're going to continue to fight, and the president has been very clear, to restore the protections of Roe, and we believe that needs to happen through
What's a
national
protection?
legislation.
Notice they just started saying that a
Is
couple
the White
years
House
ago.
that Republicans in
What
Congress
does
or
that
state
even mean?
legislatures will target contraception next?
Look, I mean, it is a concern, right? In this state house, just this session alone, right, in 2023, we have seen more than 300 bills attacking reproductive.
See, it's just most of these press reporters, they're just left-wingers and Democrat voters, activists who get on here and they use their positions to. They're not scrutinizing or criticizing the administration. They're just laying up softballs for her to knock out for, political benefit to Biden and the Democrats.
And so the president's going to take action. You're going to hear from both the president and the vice president later today. The vice president's going to be in North Carolina tomorrow. You saw the first lady having really impactful, powerful conversations with women and what they've had to deal with. We have seen stories that many of you have written about when you take away that access, that type of healthcare access for women. It's hurt women. It's put their lives at risk. Literally put their lives at risk. This is what we have seen this past year with these really extreme pieces of legislation. So the president and the vice president are going to continue to be very, very clear about this. They're going to continue to fight for those fundamental rights and continue to call on Congress to restore order.
Just quickly on the executive action, largely symbolic. I mean, are you at the end of the line here when it comes to what you can do without steps from Congress?
So let me just make clear, I want to speak about that a little bit. It builds on the progress that we believe that we have made already in expanding contraception access for women. If you think about the Affordable Care Act, it helped millions of women save billions of dollars on birth control that they need and want. And so we understand that there are gaps still as it relates to that. And so that's what this executive order does today. It does a couple of things. It safeguards access. It's strengthening access to affordable, high-quality contraception and family planning services. It increases contraception options. It lowers out-of-pocket costs. It maximizes contraception through access through the following ways: insurance coverage for those covered under the Affordable Care Act, as I just mentioned, Medicaid, Medicare, federal funded health care programs, including community health centers, and also Title X clinics, and the Indian Health Service, public education targeted at employees, college students, veterans, and service members. So we don't believe this is symbolic. We believe that this is another step to really deal with this gap that we're seeing across the country, and to do everything that we can to continue to fight for fundamental rights.
Would the White House like to see an investigation into what happened with this submersible?
Look, I can't speak to that from here. I will leave it to
none of them are interested. Like, how can you be a reporter and not be interested in this huge
Speech you mentioned in Chicago,
whistleblowers? Like,
the president offers some new proposals, or just his
I just want to cut Biden's balls in my mouth.
I think what you'll see from the president
I love
next
grabbing
week,
his chin like
and
he-
we'll certainly
he just
have more
acts
and certainly
something
lay
very
out a little
profound.
bit more as we get closer to Wednesday. Look, I think it's important.
You talk about the latest thing that's done in the
of the Invest in America, right? This is the second tour. We've heard us say that we're about to kick off the second tour. And so the president wanted to lay out what he's going to do, the detail, his economic vision in this country. He wants to speak directly to the American people to do so.
Everybody out there, the roles were reversed, and when Trump was president, and something like this came out between him and Jared, or him and his other son, Trump Jr., would that not be the question that every single one of these people would be asking, right? But instead, it's like you're going to have one or two that ask about it.
Times before, and it is going to be this is a cornerstone of his speech. And so I think it's important. He thinks it's important for the American people to hear directly from him as he talks about his economic vision, as he talks about how he sees the next several months and the next several years when it relates to how he wants to continue to grow the economy without making sure no one is left behind. And that's what you're going to hear from him. Of course, he's going to lift up the successes that we have seen the last 2 years. You've heard me say
about
this at the beginning
completely pointless things here,
of
and
the
then I'm just going
briefing,
to leave
with
here in a
13
minute.
million jobs created, unemployment at a record low, making sure that we're bringing back manufacturing jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs created. If you think about inflation, it's the lowest that we have seen since it went down by more than 50%.
Yeah, you don't want to say it's
11
bad, do
months,
you?
in the past 12
Right,
months. And that
right, because
matters.
it's just gone down from being super high.
He's gonna
So it's
talk
actually still
directly
really
to
high.
the American people to make that very, very clear. And what we've been trying to do.
She
and what
stopped
we
herself
continue to do
there.
as it
Yeah,
relates
you don't
to
wanna
lowering
say.
costs and dealing with an economy that works for all. Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. To follow up on that question.
Another useless
with
question.
the president's speech on the economy next week, it seems like he's entering a mode where he's more willing to embrace the current economy, to tout the economic progress that he believes has been made.
these are like
Is that a
propagandists.
reflection of the fact that you guys feel like inflation has cooled significantly to a point where you think this is a trend that is
This is like in The Simpsons, where Lisa Simpson's interviewing Burns, and she has to be a hack and ask him a question. She's like, your campaign's become a speeding locomotive. Why are you so great? Or why do people love you so much? And that's basically what this guy is.
Where they are, as we know that lowering costs is a key priority for them. That's what they want to see. And so, of course, the president's always going to try to meet Americans where they are. That's why you hear us talk about gas prices going down. You hear us talk about Inflation Reduction Act, a historic piece of legislation, as you all know, that's going to lower energy costs, lower health care. There are things here that he has done in the last 2 years that we have talked about over and over and over again. This gives him an opportunity to do it in a way that he talks about it in a fulsome, if you will, way and approach. Where he'll be in Illinois, he'll talk about Biden economics more broadly. He'll talk about the next kind of how he sees the future and dealing with the economy. And I think that's all incredibly important.
The future should be impeachment and prison.
He's
getting bribes from the CCP,
and
we have proof of it.
I think as you talk about the economy and where it's going, we've been very clear. We believe that we're headed to a slow and steady growth. We believe that the work that the president has done with economic policy, as he continues to move forward with it, as you continue to implement those really key important pieces of legislation, is going to continue to grow important jobs, jobs that are union jobs that are going to be able for Americans to put food on their table. All of these things are important. But like I said, we understand that a lot of Americans don't know what the president has done.
I'm just trying to get a better sense of why now for this
they don't
speech.
know how great it
tied
is.
to the progress
They're
in the
just
economy?
living it, but they
Tied
don't
to
know
this,
how
like,
great it
moment
is.
We are in the
Are you
political
serious?
season. I mean,
I think it's a combination of things, right? We've shared the good news that we've heard from the data over the past several months, right?
What is
we put
this?
that out there. We
this is like an intellectual discussion with the first gay black press secretary, and so they go out there and they, the economic data, and let's talk about the news, the huge news that we just heard. Jeez.
In a way so that he can give this cornerstone speech, right? This really important speech to the American people. So we're trying to have a steady drumbeat, right? A steady drumbeat.
There's a steady drumbeat, all right.
Communicating with the American people, not just the data, right? Not just a piece of legislation, but giving the opportunity for the president to talk about his economic plan more broadly, and that's what you're going to see. And again, a steady drumbeat, something that's been very consistent.
Propaganda.
He talks about his economic plan.
That's what she's talking about. Steady drumbeat of
and
propaganda.
The legislations, clearly, the historic pieces of legislation that we bring up is all connected. To building an economy that grows for everyone. Certainly not trickle down, but something that grows from the bottom up.
What does that Oh,
Secondly,
that's impossible. It doesn't grow from the bottom out, guys. The people at the bottom don't have the money to invest in to make it.
Decision-making of why the president decided to invite.
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
Oh, okay, there you go.
If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors
Well,
2 days earlier?
a couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You could look at past presidents. I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Right. See, she's not going to answer anything about it.
I just called
She's
him
just telling
somebody
you that.
Yeah, so, but I mean, so Kirby wouldn't answer.
I'm here to
Jamie's
not
question,
answer
though.
your
Are you gonna
questions.
answer the question? I mean, not an unreasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear.
No.
I just don't have anything to share outside of
You haven't dealt
what
with
my
it?
colleagues have shared.
You just said you're not going to
and
answer
So I
it.
would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
Text message.
I will. What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House Counsel. I just don't have anything else to share. I just answered the question.
No, you did not answer the question.
Yes or no, was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
No, you didn't.
Stephen, I just answered the question. I just said, it's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House
I just
Counsel
answered the question by
has
telling
dealt
you
with
I'm not
this,
going to answer
and I
it.
would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Eat that, peasant. That's what she's saying.
Remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel, so we have it.
I would refer you to them. and they will
Because
share
he said
their
nothing.
statement with
She can't tell you.
Your statements from that podium, you've stated that the president
Look at her
stands by
face.
his
She's
comment
so,
from
like,
the 2020
indignant.
campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House Counsel.
That's her. She's going to run away
I
now.
just
Watch.
answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The
Go
president was
ahead.
there 2 days
Go ahead,
prior.
Stephen. I'm calling on your colleague right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with regard to this text message and what
It's
the
amazing they went
president's
this
son was
long into the press briefing to get to something so
Was the
important,
president there
right?
or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. They have addressed this, and I refer you to them.
They have not addressed it.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all?
I cannot say
Unreal.
if the
Unfreaking
president
real.
had a conversation with the attorney general last night. What I can refer you to is the White House Counsel's office as it relates to the allegations. They've already addressed this.
The only reason I'm up here is to spew propaganda and not
Department of
answer
Justice on
questions that
anything else
actually
if you don't
mean
want to speak to the
something.
White House Counsel's office.
And there was reporting earlier in the week that after the plea agreement was reached by Hunter Biden, that the president felt relieved that that part of it was behind him. Is that true? Can you speak
I can't
to his
speak to that. I cannot speak to the president's mindset. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel's office. Get it.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Back to India, if we could. So India is on a U.S.
Back to India, 'cause that's what
priority
matters.
watch list, with China and Russia for failing to protect intellectual property. With this push to get American businesses to move into India more and invest in India, what assurances did you get from Prime Minister Modi
There's your hunk of
that India
flesh,
will protect
America.
intellectual
That's all you
property?
get. Back to India.
So look, as
you got to go back to talking about India. That's
who
way more important.
Who are certainly leading in innovation and technology. The United States and India have a strong and shared interest in protecting.
The president's getting and his son are now busted getting bribes from the frickin' CCP in China, involved in some sort of a scheme. But let's talk about India.
Investments in the United States and diversifying our supply chains were all topics of discussion on this historic official visit, and so I'll leave it there. But again, they are both leaders in innovation and technology, so certainly they have shared interest.
So on inflation, quickly, does the president still
That's
believe
right, Deborah.
companies are causing inflation?
So look, as you know, the president, when it comes, I just went to laid it down for Jeremy about how important it is for this president to deal with inflation. We've seen inflation go down by more than 50% in the last 12 months, and we think that's incredibly important. And so the way that we're going to continue to do the work of
it's gone down
sure that we lower
from extremely high to slightly less extremely
lowering
high.
the cost for Americans at the pump.
That's all that's happened.
And so, but to your question and other things, right? Whether it's
she said earlier that the American people just don't know how good it is. It's like that's because they're actually living it and feeling it. And she's rich and she lives a completely different life than most Americans. And so, like, her bullshit, like, she doesn't actually have to live her BS.
So the president said this in his Wall Street op-ed, and I'll quote him, as supply chains continue to unsnarl, company profits margins fall from historically high levels, and rents continue to moderate, inflation should decline further, creating more breathing room for working families.
So did the president confront the CEOs here today about that?
I'm not going to get into
half the people in this room are owned by the
conversations that the president has had, but I just laid out how
or
we
at
see
least
the future as it
seems that
relates
way.
to profit margins, and I'll just leave it there. I'll take one more question.
What? And then I'm getting the hell out of here.
Thanks so much. I wanted to ask you if there's video of the president signing this executive order today, because we were wondering.
I believe there was digital content taken
Of course,
from
that's
the president signing
that guy.
this order. And
Oh,
so
okay,
probably-
so that guy saved her from the actual questions, and then it ends on that. Are you kidding me?
By testifying to Congress that David.
One guy. Oh wow. All right. Well, pretty much exactly. You know, I made the headline of this, the title of this stream, before it started. So I mean, it was pretty obvious she was going to do this. But some people are asking me about what this bombshell actually is. It seems a lot of people don't know about it, and I'm not surprised because that's how this works. The media just, you know, they're not going to talk about it. They're going to cover it up. They'll cover it just enough. Just enough. But just so you know what's going on here, let me break it down for you. And we'll just go through a quick thread here that I have saved. And a lot of this comes from the Durham report as well. Just seeing that the DOJ and the FBI were purposely working to shield Biden and Joe, the Bidens, from these investigations. They knew the Hunter laptop was legitimate in 2018 and said nothing. You know, through the 2020 election, they said it's Russian disinformation. They told us that. They influenced the outcome of the election. They interfered in it by doing that. But they knew in 2018 that it was real. We know that now. Here is the text message that we got from several IRS whistleblowers, high-ranking. These people are pinnacles. They're leaders. They're trainers. These people are the cream of the crop at the IRS, and they're coming out as whistleblowers. And one of the things they brought out was this text. It says, and this is a Hunter Biden text message. And he's conversing with somebody in China. I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. So he starts threatening now. And it sounds very like mafia-like. Like, this is the kind of talk you would expect, like, on The Sopranos. I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. And Z, like, what? If I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Like, it doesn't get any more damning than that, especially when Biden said that, you remember when Ducey from Fox asked him specifically about talking to his son about these dealings. Biden said that he did not talk to his son about any of his dealings. And of course that video is making its rounds again everywhere. Here we go.
Overseas business. Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business?
This was in 2020.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business.
And so how do you know?
Here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question. Why is he on the phone with a foreign leader?
Look at that.
Trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened. That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump. Trump's doing this because he knows I'll beat him like a drum. And he's using the abuse of... Trump's doing this because he knows I'll beat him like a drum. And he's using the abuse of power and every element of the presidency to try to do something to smear me. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
Mr. Biden, okay, but if you've never spoken to your son...
Don't, and he said so that's a lie. We know that's a lie. We already knew that was a lie because in the Hunter Biden laptop, there are emails talking about, 10% to the big guy. And the family's almost set up like a mafia thing where, he gets his cut, everybody gets their cut. And so let me get this here. I gotta find the actual thread here. How long is this here? I'll just play this here. This basically lays it out.
Intervening and overstepping. Whistleblowers claim the Biden Department of Justice is intervening and overstepping when it comes to the investigation of the president's son. Despite what whistleblowers described as a clear-cut case for tax liability on these payments, IRS investigators say they found themselves hamstrung internally. The testimony we have just released details a lack of U.S. attorney independence, recurring unjustified delays, unusual actions outside the normal course of any investigation, a lack of transparency across the investigation and prosecution teams, and bullying and threats from the defense counsel. This was a campaign of delay, divulge, and deny. Whistleblowers say reoccurring unjustified delays pervaded the investigation, including an authenticating a WhatsApp message in which Hunter Biden demands payment from Chinese officials, noting that his father is in the room. The whistleblowers
This should be huge, everyone.
IRS
This is
investigators were told by U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf that because the evidence would be found in the guest house of former Vice President Biden, quote, there is no way, close quotes, a search warrant for evidence would ever get approved. IRS whistleblowers told this committee that crucial information about the investigation was...
Yeah, they'll lie. FBI agents will lie to get warrants against search warrants against Trump's campaign so they can spy on it. Something that has not happened. They did it to Trump.
Divulged to Hunter Biden's attorneys. For example, even an investigators had probable cause to search a Northern Virginia storage unit in which Hunter Biden had stored files.
Now,
attorneys for Biden were made aware prior to any search, providing them valuable time to remove any materials that could be useful evidence. Few Americans qualify for such soft glove treatment from federal investigators. Testimony shows that U.S. Attorney of Delaware David Weiss tried to bring charges in the District of Columbia around March of 2022 and was denied. Weiss sought special counsel status from the DOJ in the spring of 2022 and was once again denied. Weiss sought to bring charges in the Central District of California in the fall of 2022 and had that request denied in January of 2023.
Yeah, and these whistleblowers have also been retaliated against. They were kicked off their investigations. They were basically kicked out of everything, and their jobs ruined. And these are people that were, again, they were cream of the crop up until they started pushing back against what they saw as corrupt behavior by the DOJ and by the IRS. And, what did we hear all through the Trump administration when there was whistleblowers? That these whistleblowers are hallowed heroes of democracy. But somehow, when the whistleblowers come out against Democrats, suddenly now they're bad. So we basically have a situation here where Hunter Biden got off easy. we find out, oh yeah, and I got to show you that as well, that we know now that the FBI they knew that it was real, the laptop was real in 2018. And they also knew, we found out from Durham that the FBI knew in 2016 that Hillary had concocted this whole Trump-Russia collusion thing, and that she was going to use that as a weapon against them. They knew it wasn't legit, and yet they allowed it to go on. They knew it was going on. Barack Obama, all of them knew it was going on. They knew it was fake, but they all allowed it to happen anyway. Let me find this real quick. Where is it? Oh, I probably don't have it here. I've retweeted so much stuff now. All right, well, anyway. We found out that, yes, the FBI knew. Here, let me just do this. FBI knew in 2018. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Finally got it. So the FBI knew in 2018 or 2019, sorry, Hunter Biden's missing laptop as early as December 19th. They knew it was real. It was confirmed. And yet, what did we hear for several years? That it was unconfirmed, that it was Russian disinformation. And they did this specifically to give Biden the edge in the 2020 election, because if this stuff all started coming out now, then Trump likely would have won. The FBI knew as early as December 2019 that Hunter Biden believed Russians had stolen his laptop, which he believed made him vulnerable to blackmail because of compromising evidence on the laptop. Combined with his father's presidential ambitions, this explosive revelation establishes that either Joe Biden lied to the American people or the intelligence community lied to him. And just think about the fact that they suppressed an actual news agency, actual news, and these are the people that are talking about the threat to democracy. All right, I'm going to go to comment or to the comments here. What are you all saying? Durham is a punk. He did, yeah. Yeah, Durham basically should have done a better. It seems like he's kind of part of this. He's kind of like subterfuge. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this interview that Obama did real quick, and I'm probably going to end this, but so Barack Obama did an interview with Christiana Amanpour, who is a Democrat state propagandist. She has been for a long time. She continues to be, and she did this interview with Barack Obama where they talk about all these threats to democracy without a hint of self-awareness that they're literally just talking about themselves.
So let's ask about the creaky or not institutions in the United States.
Yeah.
The spectacle of a former president being...
Hold on. Before we get to that part, I want to get to this part first. I have another part of this interview here real quick. I want to get... where is it? Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now. Hold on. Where is this? Oh, yeah. So Obama... well, I'll get to that. Hold on. Oh man, where is this? I had this video already queued up, and now I can't find it. Let's see, Obama. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's do this one first, and then I'll get to that one.
President of the United States, you are just one representative of the people in a series of co-equal branches. There are checks and balances to the system. You are subject to those checks and balances. You cannot ignore them.
Democrats aren't.
You cannot make your own rules.
But Democrats
do.
do.
You cannot view the Justice Department as your personal law firm.
But Democrats
you cannot, ignore norms and
but they do.
guardrails that have been put in place to assure that your self-interest isn't what drives these institutions, but is rather the interests of the American people. And
is that why when your Attorney General Eric Holder ignored congressional subpoenas, which we're told is illegal and should be punished, when he did that, Democrats walked out of a vote to hold him accountable, and then an Obama-appointed judge throughout the blocked the censure that they tried to, because they tried to censure Eric Holder and hold him accountable, but then the judge blocked that. Okay, but they're going to sit here and tell you that these laws are applied equally.
And so, if you have anybody who's occupying that office who disregards that higher purpose, then you're going to have problems.
Oh, you mean like the gun running program that you had going on? Oh, but that's completely different. Okay, so obviously a lot of what he said is just, lacking self-awareness. They're guilty of all that. But then Cristiano Monpour adds to it here, and I wanted to comment on it. What's happening?
So let's ask about the creaky or not institutions in the United States.
Yeah.
The spectacle of a former president being federally indicted. Mm-hmm. How is the rest of the world, the democratic world, maybe even the non-democratic world, meant to interpret that indictment and indeed the fact that a federal indictee is able to run for the highest office in the land, maybe even the world?
It's funny that she doesn't mention that the detail that the president that's now under indictment is the current sitting president's main rival and the main rival of the state media and of the Democrats in general. Okay. And this is a state media propagandist on a state media channel talking both to a Democrat former president, and these are both Democrats, and they're asking what that looks like. Like, if it was America and we were looking at a country where that was happening, we would say that that's not a democracy, that's a banana republic, or it's a dictatorship or something. But somehow, it's different when they do it, or they don't see it as that. But she didn't mention the fact that this also happens to be his greatest political rival. They never mentioned that little detail.
It's less than ideal, right? But the fact that we have
and he's being indicted for something that we know Democrats have gotten away with. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden especially. Joe Biden having these documents in his garage, just sitting in there in his garage, which he admitted. He's like, oh, yeah, my Corvette's in there. It's a locked garage. Oh, okay, that makes it all right then.
Former president who is having to answer to charges brought by prosecutors does uphold
by a DOJ, from a DOJ that is, the boss is Joe Biden, who is Donald Trump's main political rival.
Hold the basic notion that nobody's above the law. And the allegations will now be sorted out through a court process.
And he says that nobody is above the law, right? But you'll remember Obama, they said that was a scandal-free presidency, and that's because the media basically just covered for every scandal involving Barack Obama. You remember the kids in cages thing that was such a big deal under Trump actually started it didn't start under Obama, but Obama built a lot of the facilities that ended up housing these kids in so-called cages. And yet it was never an issue that was connected to Obama at the time. If you look for articles about kids in cages or deplorable conditions at these detention facilities, you'll find articles about it, but they're always like generally about government and things. They're never targeted at Barack Obama. Barack Obama is never blamed. And like I said, there were plenty of scandals, like Eric Holder ignoring congressional subpoenas to testify about a gun running program that him and Obama were running. And so he dodged that. And so he was above the law. Obama was above the law. He got away with that. The media covered for him. And now we know that Barack Obama knew. So they talk about these threats to democracy, yet they are that. Barack Obama knew. me get it here. He knew about the fact that this whole Trump-Russian collusion thing was fake from the very get-go. And yet, him and the media, the government, they all went along with it. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Whoop. Dun, 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 dun. Happy Friday.
Had approved a plan to tie 2016. Did our government receive intelligence that suggested Secretary Clinton had approved a plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
Yes.
Was that intelligence important enough for Director Brennan to go brief the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Director of the FBI?
Yes.
And was that intelligence put then into a memorandum, a referral memorandum?
Yes.
And was that memorandum then given to Director Comey and Agent Strzok?
That's who it was addressed to, yes.
Did Director Comey share that memorandum with the FISA court?
I'm sorry,
Did he share that memorandum with the FISA court? Did Director Comey do that?
I'm not aware of that if he did.
Did he share it with the lawyers preparing the FISA application?
Not to my knowledge.
Did he share it with the agents on the case, working the Crossfire Hurricane case?
No.
Didn't share it with the agents on the case. Can you tell the committee what happened when you took that referral memo and shared it with one of those agents, specifically Supervisory Special Agent Number 1?
We interviewed the first supervisor of the Crossfire investigation, the operational person. We showed him the intelligence information. He indicated he had never seen it before. He immediately became emotional, got up and left the room with his lawyer, spent some time in the hallway, came back.
He was ticked off, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was ticked off because this is something he should have had as an agent on the case. This is important information that the director of the FBI kept from the people doing the investigation.
The information was kept from him.
Right, and Obama and all those guys knew about this at the time. So, in conclusion, kind of wrapping this all up, because I can already hear my kids upstairs stirring. I could hear the little footsteps. But what do we get from all this? That our government, the media, most of our institutions are corrupted. Everything that they accuse their opponents of doing and being, they themselves are guilty of. That's why they're accusing, because they just, I don't know if it's like a projection thing or like a propaganda tactic to defend themselves by just accusing their opponents of doing that, because then all their opponents could do is say, no, you're doing that, and it kind of breaks down, you know? Or if they just don't have the self-awareness to see what they are. And what we're seeing is that there's just corruption all throughout this. And that the people who are claiming to be, you know, protectors of democracy, warning about the actual threats, no, they are that threat. And they've proven it over and over again. In 2016, after Trump won, the government, the FBI, the media, they all worked together with to concoct, because they knew that's what Durham was just saying. They knew the Trump collusion thing was crap from the beginning, but they let it go because that was the insurance policy that Peter Strzok talked about. We know these people were dedicated to torpedoing Trump, and so they attacked democracy. Okay, that's what they did by their own standard. They attacked democracy but they thought it was justified. They thought, we're doing this for a good reason because Trump is so dangerous, we have to do this. Little did they know that they were becoming the very monster that they were afraid of, because everything that they're worried about happening, they did. They did everything they could to torpedo and ruin Trump, to the point they actually made the world a more dangerous place. I'll give you an example. When Trump warned about Germany being too reliant on Russia and the EU being too reliant on the US for military power, he said that, and that was a huge thing that the Democrats and the media used against him, saying that he was against NATO, he was trying to ruin the NATO alliance, and this was all being done for Putin. Despite the fact Donald Trump armed Ukraine when Barack Obama and Joe Biden wouldn't, and it was actually those javelins that he armed them with, along with some other stuff, that was it was instrumental in defending Kiev when Putin invaded. After Biden took office, you know, Putin always invades when Biden's in the White House for some odd reason, but that never comes up. And so what they ended up doing, they made fun of Trump. They said it was a big joke. Germany laughed at Trump when he gave the warning at the UN. And yet, what turned out? That's what it turned out to be. Germany was too reliant. The EU's too reliant on Russia for energy, which is why Russia's doing just fine now. And those sanctions aren't really working because the EU And all these countries are now buying Russian oil, but just through India. Okay, Russia sells it to India, India sells it to, and so they're buying oil, they're enriching the country that threatens them. Okay, Trump warned about this, and these people were so myopic and so wrapped up in their mission to get Trump that they couldn't see it. And it continues. Everything we're watching is just a continuation of that, of them trying to cover their tracks and continue this going. And the 2020 election, the FBI knew that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. And yet the government again, coordinated again with the media and the Democrats and big tech, and they suppressed real news because they didn't want to hurt Joe Biden in the election. So they interfered in the election and again told themselves, hey, yeah, you know, we're doing all the things that we said were bad, but we're doing it for the right reasons. Like Sam Stein, is that his name? Not Sam Stein, the intellectual guy. I can't think of his name all of a sudden. But what did he say? He said, oh, yes, there was a left-wing conspiracy to stop Trump, but that was okay because anything that Biden has done pales in comparison to what the threat that Trump brings. Trump represents a speeding meteor coming towards the earth. And folks, I'm going to end on this. That's what makes these people dangerous, because they see themselves as these protectors of democracy, whatever that is, because it really just seems like they want people thinking it means the Democrat Party in power and everybody else disappeared, I guess, somehow, one way or the other. And they could justify doing anything. We're seeing that now. The fact that the press isn't, I mean, we saw a little bit of pushback there at the end of the press conference. At the very end, they just threw it in there at the end of a press conference on a Friday. Okay? Something's not right. Something is not right. There is a very real threat, an authoritarian push here by these people. They want to one party rule by the Democrats. They want to outlaw their opposition. And we're just seeing that all unfold. You can't believe anything you hear from these people. Everything that they do is in service of protecting the Democrats, protecting their power, protecting their agenda. Whoever, you know, the powers that be, whatever they want, that's what they're enforcing. All right, folks. I love you all. I really appreciate you watching me today. Probably no video today because I just spent all my nap time doing this live stream. But I do thank you all for watching. I'll chop it up probably and do something with it. But keep coming back. I will see you all probably tomorrow for a live stream. So go ahead and check back. There's a link for Discord in the description and in the pinned comment. So come over here, hang out. We'll debate.